Hi, everybody. I'm back. So I am going to just get started again tonight with some articles I read a little bit earlier. I have a lot of thoughts about all of this, and I'm going to just try to condense it, but it's about the CIA declassifying documents about the Stargate program and talking about Uri Geller. And I'll just start this out with a little really short clip of Rupert Sheldrake talking back in 2008 about the extended mind and the mind field.
I'm talking about the extended mind, the mind beyond the brain. What I'm going to suggest is that our minds are field-like, that they're not confined to the inside of the head. They spread out into the environment around us. And because our minds are extended beyond our brains, they can have effects at a distance, which are surprising from the conventional point of view and help to make sense of a range of controversial phenomena like telepathy. So the first point is that the question of where is the mind located. I'm suggesting that minds are field-like and spread out beyond brains in a similar way to the way that magnetic fields spread out beyond magnets, cell phone fields spread out beyond cell phones, and the Earth's gravitational field stretches out far beyond the Earth. These fields are within and around the material systems they organize. And I think the same is true of our brains.
So the CIA has done a huge data dump, and it's too much, again, information overload, but some of it that's coming out already has been pretty interesting. Um, a magician walks into a laboratory, and this is all, it says 930,000 searchable documents. They were posted online on Tuesday. These documents have already been available. People just had to drive and go actually look at them. And when people were going in to look at these documents in person, they had a sign that told them they were being filmed while they were doing it. So it was kind of, one of those things that not very many people got to dig into, and you only have so much time when you're going and looking through documents in person. So now that they're online, it's like, a lot of this stuff is coming out. Spiritualist healers in Mexico, dreamlike structure of telepathic assertions, an assessment of the evidence for psychic functioning. And so this is all very loaded. A lot of people, dismiss a lot of this and say, well, the CIA is not doing that anymore. And so this is really actually kind of just one of those topics that, for me personally, I think it's obvious that they had tons of success doing this kind of stuff. I've known that for years, but now it's like, well, the declassified files talk about carrying out secret psychic experiments on Uri Geller, and how he really did convince them that he was able to, that he was able to remote view, because the whole spoon bending thing was just a distraction. So basically, he was doing drawings from the next room, and with these psychic experiments at Stanford, and they were reporting this stuff back to the CIA. And so, they investigate him, and they have, the Stanford University expert drew the solar system, and then Geller's version in the next room, supposedly blind from what they're seeing. He had a whole bunch of hits on these. Here they drew the grapes. Geller draws grapes. Really, this is just like the tip of the iceberg as far as the experiments and all the data that they've gathered regarding remote viewing and remote influencing. Because the whole issue of how perceptive can we be through the non-local mind from a distance. And if we start to look at the fact that all the space between your atoms is the connecting field, then picking up on non-local information is not that far-fetched. And they made the Men Who Stare at Goats. Geller says that George Clooney was really playing him, and this was his character, and he says that actually he was asked to stare at a pig, and not a goat. But it's kind of to me, again, the staring at a goat or a pig trying to get it to die is a huge distraction. You know, I'm not saying that that's not possible. I'm not saying it is, but I think something to that level would be more of like the spoon bending. It's ridiculous. It's more about being able to pick up on non-local information that obviously is what this is really about from my point of view. And I mean, from my experience, I've talked about it in endless videos. A lot of people I know and a lot of you have had experiences. Let's face it, all this crap entertainment and crap food and crappy Wi-Fi, you know, all these bad frequencies, bad lighting, all of it. It must be contributing to if this is like an epigenetic expression and a person actually can develop more sensitivity to not with the non-local mind, you know, then why, you know, what's to say all of that stuff isn't suppressing it? So anyway, it's just I have a lot of thoughts about this, and I think it's interesting because I don't trust this guy. I mean, he says he's a CIA guy. He says he's never going to tell all the truth. You know, he's told a lot of crazy shit. But clearly some of this stuff does have merit, and there's so much more about remote viewing and all of it. And I do think Sheldrake's work is interesting, and he's been very persecuted by, you know, the skeptics and the pseudo skeptics really about it, because a real skeptic has to say, okay, well, obviously some of this stuff is too far-fetched. I'm way skeptical of it. Because, you know, I mean, you should be skeptical of your skepticism about this shit too. And when it comes to this kind of stuff, I think rapport is important. Actually, rapport is a close, harmonious relationship in which people or groups concerned understand each other's feelings or ideas and communicate well. It's from the French verb rapporter, which means to carry something back. So it's like a feedback loop. And when you have that feedback loop and rapport with someone, you know, you're able to relate to them more readily, and you're able to, it's basically saying, in the sense of how people relate to each other, means that one person sends out and the other sends back. So if you have that reciprocation in the mind energy, you're going to have more success with this kind of non-local information and with, you know, psychic instances. And this is why I think Sheldrake chose to do a lot of the phone experiments that he's done, because there's no way of knowing, you know, exactly when a person's going to call or whatever. And so it's kind of just interesting about how that would relate and affect this kind of stuff. There's so many factors like this that affect, you know, so-called psychic abilities and remote viewing, that I think it really is something that's difficult to do so-called scientific, you know, reductionist kind of research with. And I've met people who have amazing accuracy. They have an amazing way of being able to pick up on things that I don't believe could possibly be extrapolated from cold reading. And so I've always been someone who supports any science that wants to take this stuff seriously and really look into it. Because what I think is obvious is there's been, you know, I guess you could say conspiracy to keep this kind of stuff in the dark, to keep the public in the dark about it, to make everybody, you know, kind of feel, you know, like it's not, they don't want to be mocked. A lot of people don't want to admit that they've had experiences. They want to make everyone feel like their subjective experiences should be discounted. And they shouldn't necessarily. I mean, they should be taken it with a grain of salt and everything. But there's way more going on. So in a very near future talk, I'm going to talk more about this whole mind field and the human biofield and stuff that goes a lot deeper into this whole subject matter. So this is kind of a part one, I guess. I'm going to continue along these lines of thinking about this stuff soon. Anyway, have a good night.